What's going on, you guys? Truly excited for another episode of Everything Uncovered. Once again, this is your host, Coach Ike, and truly excited to have one of my former teammates on. His perspective is a little different, and I believe that it definitely need to share it. But before we get into that, I would like to talk about all season is here. We have our DB mentorship program. Definitely want you guys want to tap in. We go over drills, talk about off the field branding. We talk about all these things, how to make sure that you're being recruited and not passed over there during this time. Make sure you guys tap in with us on social media, on TikTok, on Instagram, Facebook, Coach Ike's DB Training. Okay. Now, I would like to invite my guest. My guest, like I said, is we played together at Middle Tennessee State University. This is a guy who is truly successful now. He is a father. He is in his own profession. He's even an author. So we're going to talk about all these things and how football has helped him and molded him into what he's doing now. So without further ado, my guest, Robert Hogg.
Hey,
Oh, what's going on with you?
man, I'm great, man.
Man,
I'm good. You?
great to have you on. I can hear you.
Okay.
So I just did an intro, man, telling them, how your perspective is a little different from everybody's else that I had on. And I was telling how you are now an author, you are in your career a father, a husband. But before we get into all those things, man, appreciate you once again, Robert, for getting on with me. But before we go into anything else as far as what you've accomplished and everything, take us back, man, to how was it growing up, your upbringing in Tennessee, bro?
Okay. Once again, man, first and foremost, man, appreciate you having me on your platform, man. And now, I really, believe in what you're doing, man. It's making a lot of impact. I'm just a blessing for me to be on. So thank you for that. To unpeel the onion. So, growing up in Tennessee, I was born in Memphis, Tennessee. I'm a son of a teacher. My mom was a hairstylist. She taught cosmetology. My father was a minister, and then he was a chaplain in the United States Penitentiary. So he pretty much was a pastor to the inmates at one of the highest levels of the correctional institution. So we moved around a lot. We moved from like the rural areas. Like I was initially born in Memphis, and then we moved to rural areas in Kentucky. Um, you know, Ultimately moving back to Memphis, where he had a more of a supervisor role, and that's something that as you move up the ranks in your career and your life, then you might go to places you don't want to go. And at the time, I was a kid, so we're just moving, meeting new people, meeting, kids my age, and just moving around is not really being stable. And then we finally, went back home. So um, it was crazy, man. And then that kind of unstableness is kind of what pushed me, or my parents, I would say, kind of pushed me to really get into sports. Is really having that core or that group or that team kind of mindset. So initially, I was kind of afraid to really get into football. I mean, my sister ran track, and I was like, I want to be like my big sis. So track and field was the first sport I did, and a little bit of karate, and that kind of really opened me up to be like, all right, let me try football. Like I've always want to get into it, but like initially, I've always been small, and it's like, man, I don't know, man. There's some big boys out there, so like, do I really want to do this? So
Yeah.
and sports is something that really helped me to gain confidence in myself, something that I could excel from athletic standpoint. I knew I was athletic, or but I never competed. It's one thing to kind of do something organized, it's something to kind of play tag, and you be the first one selected on backyard football. It's another thing to do something that's more organized. So Memphis has a terrific they had it's called Shelby Youth Sports. I'm not sure if it's still around, but they had like a league, like most cities have like a league for all the under 18, all under 16 that all compete. So you kind of compete against all talent. They had cheerleading, track, football, I'm not sure if they had another, but you compete against all these different type of regions in the city. So
I think it's something that you said that resounds with me. First of all, my first sport I ever did was track. I think all kids should run track.
oh
It's
yeah, for sure.
it's something. It's a mentality that you have built to be as a competitor. I tell my athletes that I train, like, look, don't be afraid to get on that track because now you got to compete all the time, every time you get out there. And if you don't,
Sure.
you're embarrassed out there. And
For sure.
you can get embarrassed real good. And it don't matter how fast you are or good you are in football. That track is a different type of speed.
It's a different beast, man.
Yeah.
Nah, for sure. And also getting that endurance. And that's the main thing. Like, I mean, endurance in any sport, so really having that track background, I think really helped me in football, really helped me in really all my sports, that I played. But specifically just knowing like, all right, we got 110s or we got 200. So, just mentally knowing how to either pace yourself or, just, how to stride it out, not overexert yourself where you're, exhausted, you kind of get that rhythm for sure.
How to run your own race rather than everybody else.
Right. Right.
And it was something else you said, because you said your father, he was a pastor and you guys moved
Right.
around. My uncle actually was a pastor as well, and we actually had church at my house. So, and my dad was an assistant pastor. So brought in a church, understand that foundation. I tell people all the time, if it wasn't for my family and the foundation that they laid for me, I'll be a whole different person. I always thank them for that. And I understand for you, like you said, even though you guys were, as far as moving around all the time, there wasn't a lot of stability. But at the same time, there's a foundation because your dad is a pastor. How much was that foundation built or taught to you that you rely on today?
Man, it's critical, man. Just growing up in the church, growing up, with the foundation, man, just, having faith, that's one thing that I think, it really hit home for me because you just never know with life, man, what's thrown at you. Um, Perseverance, um, just, having that solid foundation you can always believe in, man, because, people let you down, organizations can let you down, but, having your faith and rooted in something that's higher than you, something that's always going to be there is eternal. And, really having that faith background. So that was instrumental for me, just my whole journey in life, just my whole pathway. So like, my belief, in the Lord is something that kind of has really at a young age has created the foundation. Then as a young man with a family, is instrumental. So and one thing I didn't get to is when I moved from Memphis to East Tennessee to high school. So I was 13 when I moved. Pretty much finished 8th grade. So that's one of the hardest time to move is like when you finish middle school, you get all your friends, got all these plans and expectations for high school, and you just move, my father got promoted, to a more supervisory role, which is, is a blessing. But at the time, it was a lot of, it's frustration. I didn't really understand it. I didn't understand why we getting uprooted. My sister just graduated from high school. So she didn't really take the brunt, to moving. And East Tennessee is more conservative than you would say Memphis. Memphis is obviously the biggest city in the state, and East Tennessee is more conservative. I would say more. I mean, it's family oriented, but it's just more conservative. It's just to me, it was a culture shock.
Yeah.
It's going to a place that I initially, didn't know if I was going to be accepted. A lot of people don't look like you. It's just different. So having faith that everything's going to work out was something that me and my family both leaned on.
So for those guys, because I'm gonna break it down for Hoggy. When he says conservative, very slow, and in the country, all right.
Right, for
But
sure.
for those guys who never been to Memphis, because we in California, there's a lot of people. Memphis is more
Okay.
like LA, okay? So
Right,
basically saying they're going out to the country, and it's not too many people that look like them, all right? So
right, yeah. Nah, like in my high school, it was probably, I think enrollment was maybe 1,200, 1,300. It was probably less than 200, blacks or, African Americans or people of color. Everyone else was, Caucasian and white folks.
Yeah, yeah, and that is, and it's crazy you just said that because I just had an interview with a coach, and he was saying the reason why he didn't move up is due to the fact he had children, and he said that girls, he had a daughter. He said the reason why I didn't want to keep locating or relocating for work is because it's harder on girls. He's like, boys, you can put them in sports and they can jail, they can have friends.
Sure.
And girls it'd be much harder because they're not always in sports. But you saying even then still was still difficult for you. So that's interesting.
Right.
Of course, it can help you, but it was still a shock to you.
Yeah, I mean, to touch on that point in a deep, like, yeah, sports help. And I went to a phenomenal high school that has excellent education, and I didn't really, know that at the time. I just knew I was moving. But just doing research on East Tennessee and just some of the surrounding universities, going playing against schools that were called the Rebels, but not really understanding the Confederacy, not understanding what came with that. So having away games in them type of environments, them rivalry weeks when, they come with, the flags and some of the slurs, and you coming from the city, it's like, whoa, like it's a different world that, when you live in the city around people who look like you, it's totally different. So that just kind of fortified the mindset and the attitude, like, hey, yeah, we're blessed to be here, but like this is just part of my journey. Like, I don't want this to be my final stop. That always was my mindset when I moved to East 10. That wasn't my final stop. Yeah, I can always come back and visit, but I just didn't want, I didn't want to get derailed and, whatever life could happen and be stuck there.
Yeah, no.
Something a lot of people do. They kind of on their journey, they're going places, they're traveling, they're, it's life, and they get stuck. Something happen, and they're not really progressing. So I didn't want to get stuck in a situation where, I'm, like you said, in the rural area where it's not the ideal situation, but at least for me.
Can you go more in depth in that, because this is why I love to hear other people's upbringings and their stories and their perspective, because in California we see all types of nationalities, all different types of
Right.
people. So our exposure, yes, there is some racism. It's a little different economically because they separate out in California. But in Tennessee, when I was out there, I really didn't run into it until one time going out, and that was like, you can't come into this establishment. But you're kind of ingrained in day to day to this. So how were you, like, it's a shock to you because you see it now, but were you able to communicate this to your family, and what was those discussions like?
Yeah, speaking with my family about it, they knew more than I did, just because, I'm 13. I'm a kid. They knew what they were getting themselves into. My parents are, shout out to them, man. They're super strong. I mean, they born and raised Chattanooga in the 50s. So they went through, like, my mom and my dad was part of, integration when that really took place in the South. Kind of translating into their careers. So, and they understood in order for them to really move and excel, they had to move because them opportunities weren't locally. So moving to East 10, they understood what came with it, which in most cases, when you move to areas where you're the minority, you got to work twice as hard because, everyone's expecting you to feel like they only know stereotypes. They don't know anything about it. They just know what they're reading, what they're hearing. And so my family was able to ingrain that to me, like, hey, don't listen to all the chit chatter and the gossip and all that stuff. So I didn't really let that stuff really get to me. It was nothing like, there was probably one instances of, like, my freshman year in high school, I went to the varsity game and we played this one of our rival schools called the Rebels, Sullivan South. I think the school actually shut down, but the whole away stadium had Confederate flags, like out of the movies.
Yeah.
And like they had like bananas and stuff. They'll throw them on the field. And the high school I went to was rather predominantly all blacks. in the town go to, and it's a very successful high school. But man, that was like some Remember the Titans type stuff, man. Like I'm like, whoa, like what is going on? And just really understanding a lot of people have ignorance. And it wouldn't necessarily be the students at them high schools. It'll be like their parents. It'll be like the cousins and the uncles who go into the away games. And you could tell they're teaching their kids about these things. And it wasn't like, like someone say something on the field or whatnot, you could tell like it ain't them. They don't know me. They don't know anything about me. It's what they're being taught. And that's where I really understood how, propaganda, how things are created, by people just being ignorant and not really knowing the truth, not really having a friend and they can relate to and ask questions like, hey, how's your life in these shoes? So like I said, it was a culture shock, but in I guess hindsight 2020, it made me a better person that I'm comfortable in all different types of ethnicity groups. Of course, like I know how to hold myself. I can have conversations, not just with, people who look like me, but people who are different from me, and, not feel, any type of inferiority to them or anything. Because a lot of people, in our field, they don't, like, they're uncomfortable when they're in that kind of position. So, it really helped me, but at the time, like, it was a battle, man. It was going, when it's kind of hard to look at something when you're going through that journey. So I'm grateful for my, my high school experience in that aspect. And there's also other good things, but that was like one thing I did want to hit on is, especially for student athletes, when you maybe go to a different route, maybe not the traditional university, you might have to go to a D3, D2 JUCO community college that might not be where you want to be, and you're going to deal with these things.
Yeah. Now, I definitely appreciate you sharing that perspective because, like you said, some kids, that journey will happen. And if you're able to do it, then of course they can do it as well.
For sure.
So I want to move on, man, because of course you've been playing sports now. You're in high school. And like you said, you were very productive at your school. You earned all state and all Northeast Tennessee honors as a senior. You were the team captain and also the team MVP as a senior. You also
Right.
went to the All-Star game and you all state in track as a junior and a senior. So
Right.
due to all these things, most of the time when you're the man, it's good, but now colleges, of course, we want to go on to the next level. How was that recruiting process for you?
Man, recruiting started off slow. A good friend of mine's, it started off slow for him. And you'll have scouts come to the game. The coaches might be like, hey, Appy State's at the game, VTech's at the game. But not really, maybe you meet somebody. Like we had some other schools, like you might meet somebody, they might make an introduction. But that was, no knock to any of my, I guess high school coaches or anything, but like recruiting was slow. And the older I've gotten, the more I've seen, like you got to put yourself first. And that's one thing that it's a lesson learned for me, something that I preach, when I see student athletes. You got to sell yourself. So I didn't really go to like a lot of camps until I think the summer of my junior year. That's when I started to really started to click. Like the camps is where you see the coaches. They can see you. You can work out for them. Like I should have been doing that. Freshman and sophomore year, man, to really kind of I was doing 707s with the team. Like we'll travel, do like 707 tournaments, but not necessarily getting that exposure. So my junior year, like I said, it was slow. Then a good friend of mine, he actually went to Clemson, and he was like, "Man, you gotta promote yourself, man. You gotta like even if you gotta like go to the videographer and be like, yo, can you cut me these tapes? Like games 1 through 3, games 1 through 4." So so as I'm a rising senior, they all go on to college. I hang out with a lot of the older guys. I went to an MTSU camp. MTSU was recruiting me really hard. I went to a There's like a regional camp in Knoxville. I think UT Knox Might was hosting that, and then I think Tennessee State had one in Nashville. And that was really it. Everything else was like 7-on-7s, and like that whole summer, I should have every weekend I should have been somewhere. I should have been getting that exposure, and then a little bit of it was like, my team was doing like my high school team was doing 7-on-7s, and I didn't want to be out there like, hey, I got my own thing I got going on. I didn't want to bring that rift within the team. And some of my coaches, they were like, hey, it's the team over you type of mentality. And I didn't really peep that at the time that, I should have been selling myself, and a good coach will understand that. But, there was a Virginia Tech that to this day I should have went to. I got invited to as a rising senior, and it's the same day as the 7-on-7 camp in Wofford, South Carolina. I went to the Wofford camp, which we did good. We didn't win it, but I should have been at the V Tech camp in retrospect. So it started off slow. Towards the end of my senior year, I took some unofficial visits. Took an unofficial visit to MTSU, Tennessee State, Marshall. Marshall and MTSU were the two kind of heavy recruiting me. Carson Newman and Tuscaloosa, they're some top D2s in the South Carolina, East Tennessee region. And took an unofficial to UT Knox when they played Arkansas with McFadden and Felix Jones and them boys back in this was what, 07. So I got out there towards the end of it when I really understood, like, you got to put yourself out there. But initially, yeah, it was slow for me, so I didn't really see a lot of attention until later.
No, man, you just unraveled a lot, man. And one thing that stuck out to me was because we got kids take unofficial visits and official visits. Can you explain what an unofficial visit is like? I never taken one before, so I don't even know. But I have an idea of what it is. But can you know what it is?
Yeah, unofficial visit is, I mean, pretty much, you get a letter or a call like, hey, we're playing such and such, tickets for you and maybe a parent or two. They pretty much it's the game day. It's not like you're there the week or the weekend. You're there only to show. You're only there for the game. You check in at will call or whatever. You get your your tickets. You might tour the facility on game day. You might speak to the positions group. But it's not like you're it's gonna be some follow-up. It's like this is like an initial, they just want to show you, hey, this is our facilities. Hey, this is what a game day can be like for you. But it's not necessarily we're gonna offer you. It's like, hey, you might be on the list of 5 or 10 in your position group, and things fall through with these other guys, we might give you a call. But it's not, you are our guy, we want you to come here. So, and a lot of it could be really just more marketing, like, hey, how many guys, y'all giving opportunities to? So, I took all of my unofficial visits. None of them ended up in offering me a scholarship. But yeah, I mean, it's a good experience, but it's not an official visit. An official visit is, you got, an athletic scholarship, on the table.
So I'm glad you broke that down because I'm getting out a little game. So there's a lot of kids who I've trained. They're like, oh, yeah, the coach is giving me an unofficial visit. I said, fellas, go to all the unofficial visits if they're in the area. If they're not in the area, it doesn't make sense because at the end of the day, you got to pay for that. And when I'm talking about in the area, I'm not talking about like we in California. If a school tells you take an unofficial visit to Florida or something like that, you don't need it. You don't need it. It only need to be local. The only time I'm going out to Florida if they paying for it, and that's official.
Oh, sure.
So, I get a lot of parents that be like, oh, yeah, the school want me to go to an unofficial visit. I'll be like, depending on if you want to really drive there or, spend that money, if you got it, hey, definitely go ahead.
You got it. No, for sure. Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, all mine was 3-hour drive. It might be early.
It makes sense. That makes sense.
It might be early on a Saturday. You get up 7, 6 in the morning. You be back, later that evening. But we wasn't. For sure. You're not spending thousands. You're not going on flights, or I mean, like you said, if you have it, but we didn't have that to do. Like it would need to be in a radius that
Yeah.
made sense.
Yeah. So I appreciate you sharing that, because people need to understand the definition of that official and unofficial visit, and how is that broken down for them. So
No,
now I want to continue on, bro. So you decide to choose MTSU. So what made you choose MTSU? And then you also decide to walk on for the football team. What was
right.
that process like? Because my experience is a little different. So share
Right.
that process of walking on at MTSU. But first, what made you choose MTSU?
Right. So before I tackle that question, so uh, to finish up the recruiting question, I was getting, everyone wants to sign, and I didn't truly understand the process to get to where I ultimately wanted to go. So the school that was actually giving me the most money was a D2 called Tusculum College in Greenville, Tennessee.
Mhm.
So I was able to get an athletic scholarship there, and to pay for, I think they pay for everything except I think there's probably maybe, some, it was a private school. So it was like maybe close to 30 grand a year to go there. So I went there at a high school. It was an opportunity. I felt like I could touch the field, get some experience, which I did. I made the bus, play special teams, etc. But in the back of my mind, I knew that wasn't my stop. I knew I wanted to play, big time FBS, I was a football. So MT was, like I said, they recruited me the hardest. Coach Watts was actually my recruiter coach. They showed a lot of interest, and I stayed in contact my freshman year, my true freshman year. And I just, reached out like, hey, y'all got any opportunities there? And like any organization, it's a business. It's like, yeah, you can, but we gonna, you gotta come in as a walk-on. So, initially, it was more like, hey, you can go you can go somewhere, your freshman year, and we'll bring you back in, and we'll see how things work out. So that opportunity was going to be a walk on. So, but it wasn't a walk. It was like not just like, hey, you're a preferred walk on. It was like you got to try out walk on, which is totally different. A preferred walk on, it's like they can be throwing you some perks, and you might have a leg up on trying out. Like trying out is like any Joe Blow, on campus can try out for the football team, and you gotta like know when the tryouts are. So like that whole summer of this was the summer of '09. I'm training back home. Like I'm like I gotta make it. Like in my mind, like this is it. Like my life playing football is on the table. I done left the D2. I left the comfort of a scholarship and the program for something that I truly believe in. I truly believe in this is where I was meant to be. Like, Murfreesboro, as you know, was like Middle Tennessee, which is the most exponentially growing area. If there's any part of Tennessee that, it just had the most action going on, like not Memphis or West Tennessee, not East Tennessee, it's a good area. So I felt like the university from an academic standpoint and then athletically kind of met both of my goals. So I chose it because one, I believed in the school growing. Like MT was, I think about to be like the #1 enrollment, in the state, like surpassing UT Knox. They had a good construction management. When at that time I wasn't even majoring in construction, I was majoring in computer science. We can tackle that later. But it met my goals, and then during the recruiting process, I had the most interest to them, and I feel like I can make an impact. I felt like it wasn't like a program that I felt like you're gonna be a punching bag or something like that. It was somewhere I felt like I had an opportunity, I could compete, and that's all I wanted. So I had to try out, man. I had to try out. It was like maybe 10 or 12 of us. We had to run a 40. I think I ran a 4.4, hand time, cone drills. And they were like, "Yeah, man, you had an excellent workout." And these are all like the scout team coaches and GAs. These ain't even the coaches. So, they over there hyping me up, man. Like, oh man, you had a phenomenal workout, man. You made the team. They took like maybe 2 or 3. They took actually a handful. They took like maybe 7 or 8 of us. and everyone has, coming from experience, coming from either other programs. So there's an ego there. And I played football my whole life, and you've read some of the accolades in high school. So, I can play football. So for me to try out, and I'm like, all right, so it's like, what are the scholarship athletes like?
Mm-hmm.
I've been a couple practices and stuff. So now I'm like, all right, the competition is like, all right, how are these guys?
Exactly.
So this is the year we went to the New Orleans Bowl, and we had a lot of vets on the team. So my red shirt, this is my red shirt sophomore year. I have the red shirt because when you go D2 to D1, you got to sit out a year. So I'm ineligible the whole season. I can really just focus on my academics and really try to get in shape to compete. So that was tough, man. I ain't gonna lie, Ike, man. You got to be like, to walk onto a program is already, the odds are not in your favor. I ain't gonna say it's impossible. The odds are not in your favor because they might not just need you. They might have enough guys on the team. So it's something that you got to really want, man. You can't just, you got to really want it. Like, and like I was like that summer, I trained like my life was on the line, man. Like if I still want to play ball, I had to make it happen. Like no coach, no anything, just me. So that fall when I'm ineligible, I'm just practice squad. And what practice squad is pretty much, you giving a look. You playing. You're pretty much going against the ones or the twos on offense, and you're giving a look. I'm not gonna say you're like a punching bag or anything because everyone's getting better. Some people might have a different mindset, but you actually getting real looks between the guys who are actually going to be starting. So you ain't going against the scout team receiver. You're going against the number one. So you're getting real live looks. And there's also, things that kind of come with, how to explain this. So like, I think there's 108, 109 players on the team. So you might be number 102.
Yeah.
And like most players, you used to having your number, you used to having, everything. But 102 is like, what is that? So there's an identity with a jersey number. And we build our egos of like, hey, I'm number 5, man. I got this, I got, I'm swagged out, but 102 is like, am I even accounted for? Am I even, appreciated? So there's a lot of those mental games that could be played. I think most people respected me on the team. There was never like, hazing or anything kind of going on. And you hear stories about this. I can't really, explain that happened to me where I've seen anything like that, but, there is something that, people might not feel appreciative that either they're wanted or they're at the same caliber as their peers. And I think that's an important thing to know. But some coaches do a good job. Be like, hey man, we're all one team, and I think that's more on the coach than it is necessarily. Like we're all a team. We're all collectively trying to get better. Walk-ons to 50-year guys. Red shirt guy. We're all trying to get better. So that was my.
Man, that's crazy you said it because it wasn't until I think we was about to graduate, and you remember Blizzard, and
Yeah, Shane, yep.
Shane was a baller. Shane basically started from the time I was there, but I didn't realize he was a walk-on, and it wasn't until he got hurt and he busted his spleen in practice, and I was one of those people. It was like 3 of us hitting. And it wasn't until he started explaining, like, yeah, man, like they put me on scholarship. But he said up to that point, like he said, I had to work. I had to, I couldn't go to the meals. I can't think of our meal plan, but whatever. He was like, I didn't have no meal plan. And I just like, you know what? I never really thought about it. Like, why don't see certain guys in here? So it didn't even dawn on me, like, man, like you guys who walk-ons, like, yes, you might be an area, and I envied y'all, no lie, when we would have a break and y'all can go home though real quick, rather because y'all live close. I'm like, bro, I wish I could just go home real quick and whatnot. Yeah, sure. But at the same time, I can see, like you said, it didn't matter if you was better than somebody or not, but because of how the coach saw you, it was just like, your opportunity was not the same as someone else. And I appreciate you sharing that the process of how it was, because some people, they don't understand that process. Like I do know someone I've coached before, he went on as a preferred walk-on and he's actually starting now. So you saying like, man, we got to walk on all from scratch. And
Yeah, that's totally different. Yeah,
yeah,
preferred walk-on mean they don't want you, man. Like they ain't counting on you. You're fortunate to make the team, just because, your workout, but like you're not, they're not really counting for you, and they're not really counting for you to really add value. Now, some programs are different, but uh, I don't think any collegiate coach like, oh, our starter is going to be, somebody trying on the team. That's being real.
for sure, for sure. So you already shared a little bit about how your mindset was once you make the team. How were you treated though? Because, and I'm sad to say, so when I first got up there, I got there in the spring, so I'm new, and I remember I had to go to a workout, and it was like, oh, Ike, your workout shoes is in your locker, and I looked, and I'm like, nah, my workout shoes ain't in here. It was like, I think one of the walk-ons got your shoes. And it was like, go get them. So I'm not trying to be nobody like, oh, I'm better than you or something. But I was like, hey, bro, I need those shoes. And he had them on. And he was like, oh, my fault. Like, and it was just like, I felt bad because I'm really trying to just go to workout. I don't have anything else. And he literally just had the shoes on. And he was like, well, I ain't got nothing to work out. I'm like, man, my fault, bro. Like, so how was you treated yourself? And then did you seek? And you said nobody was nothing bad though, but how were you treated? And the other ones, the other people, because all of y'all all my boys, like for sure. Everybody was my boy. So how was that, going on that side of the locker room, rather, like you said, the identity of 102 or whatever that jersey number was?
That's a good point. So, I remember my first day of practice, man. We had to, or get size for your pads and stuff. It was on a Sunday. I think it was maybe after a game or maybe right before the game started. I can't remember. And you know, you could tell a lot by body language. You could tell a lot, like someone wouldn't really want to be there. Hey, I want that helmet right there. That one's fire. No, you don't get that helmet. Them for starters, them for players. Okay. Oh, I like my pads this way. I like to be swagged out. No. You won't get these pads here. It's like, bro, like I can't. So that's day one. It's like I can't wear the stuff I want to wear. I can't wear a visor. Like I said, and like I said, every organization, every program could be different. This is my experience. Like I wanted to wear the Dion, face mask. I'm wearing, the 2-bar that's open. I'm like, what is this? So them are like mental games that can really affect with your confidence, man. And then, with, like I said, with the jersey number, not having it installed. I think, before we had the new facility, I had to share a locker. I'm sharing a locker with another player on the team. My belt sometimes getting mixed, his socks and, stuff getting in the loops. And these are just little small things, but these things, like we went and had a long day at school or on campus, and you got to practice, and your loop ain't even there. You already could be late. You try to be there on time. Yo, where my loop at? Hey, I need, I need some socks. I need the fitted stuff. And it's like, man, damn. Like I just want to like I'm coming here to work, man, and I can't even do this. I don't even have the basic stuff. And then when we actually get on the field, when I got there, we didn't even have the same practice jerseys. Like our jerseys look like the jerseys from maybe 2-3 seasons ago. So you already stand out. You don't even look apart. You look, you don't even look like you even belong. And I hated that, man. I ain't gonna lie, man. I hated there was a natural divide. And then some of the freshmen who were, they ain't know, they just come in, hey, I'm this and that. And in the back of my mind, it's like, man, I was on scholarship last year. You guys ain't doing nothing like, and then my tuition is higher, is double than your tuition. Like I'm like everything you doing, I've already done it. I'm believing in myself to be here. I ain't less than nobody. So, and there's also a humble approach. Like you can't fight every battle. You can't fight every person. You can't, there's a way you gotta strategically move. Some walk-ons, they might not be that cool, and they weren't there. Like, they might have spoke up, be like, hey, this some BS. And, the coach might be like, you know what, you dividing the team. We don't need you. So you might have to hold your tongue on something. You might be like, coach, I'm doing exactly what you told me to do on this play. And he ran into me, but it's my fault. I ain't trying to hurt nobody. He ran into me. The ball was a bad throw. So you getting cussed out on something that's someone else's error. And like I said, it all kind of goes to the mindset of your purpose and your bigger journey. And it sounds, but like I said, it was tough, man. Like, having that mentality, and I still have that mentality to this day. Like I like, being a walk-on, maybe being overlooked, being an underdog. These are some qualities that I take, day to day. Like now, I always say, like, my life, I took the stairs. I ain't getting the elevator. I didn't have some of the breaks that some of my peers might have, and some of the breaks I'm talking about, like, and it could be a sour taste towards recruiting, because some of the people who did get offered scholarships were people who I beat in playoff games. Other players that I were better, well, that we beat them, but they had the prototypical size. And you can definitely speak to this, just having size. And these are intangibles you can't control. Like, there was days I was like, man, I wish I was 6 feet. I'd probably went SEC, or at least had a look. So, but these things you can't control. These things that, as you look back on, is like, man, what are things I can control? So at that time, playing at a school at MTSU gave me the best opportunity to play at the highest level to get a look. So, yeah, man, that walk-on mentality, I mean, like, it really fortified, like, how bad I really wanted, especially mat drills, man. They want everybody to quit, man. But you go walk on, and you in off-season workouts, man, they try and clear up the roster, man. They want some new blood to come in. You taking up space. So they're gonna be extra hard on you, man. You got to roll 8 times when someone else might roll 4. So it's them little things, but, like, if you ain't mentally tough and got a purpose and really want some, situation like that, will get you to quit. And I ain't like, if I was starting something, that was my whole mindset. If I start something, I ain't gonna quit. I'm gonna see it all the way through, for good or bad. I'm gonna see it all the way through. I already transferred. I can't transfer again. That's my mindset. I ain't want to go to another program and start from zero. Like, this is it. Like, this, and I'm giving it my best shot. So
now I like that you said I took the stairs and not the elevator. And I definitely understand what you mean. I mean, I was not fortunate. I didn't get an offer out of high school, but schools wanted me, and they was like, "Oh, you got to pay a certain amount of money." I said, "I'm not gonna do that to my parents." And
right.
plus, I knew what type of player I was, and there was no disrespect to nobody. Everybody looked at my side. They saw the film, they loved it, and they saw me in person. They're like, "Oh, maybe this." I'm like, "Come on now." So, but I truly understand that chip on your shoulder, and you gotta, like you said, you gotta have it as a walk on, just at this time. And I want to go into the next stage though. Like, what is your daily routine as a student athlete now? Because of course, we still gotta go to practice. We still got to go to class. I don't know if you guys had access to our student union or whatever we had.
Yeah, the enhancement center.
Yeah. So tell me, like, what would be a daily routine that you would have to go through in order for you to school, practice, and all that back home?
That's a great question. So initially when I got to MT, my major was like computer science. Like, I thought I wanted, really get into computers and stuff. I took my first class, and it was the hardest thing, like coding and all that. I was like, man, I can't do this, man.
Yeah.
So after my first semester, at least, I didn't really know what I wanted to get into. And I knew and that was the reason why I left my D2, is like, I use that as, I won't say as an excuse, but like, I use it like, some of their career fields didn't pertain to things I had interest to. So one thing I've always been good at was putting things together. and engineering, specifically construction, was something that, drove an interest to me. So when you're in the basic applied science areas of interest, not a lot of those professors and help is in the enhancement center. Most of the enhancement center, at least in my experience, were some of your core classes, business, English, writing, reading. So a lot of my career, not career, a lot of my core classes, and then my major classes weren't like, I had to go to the professors, and a lot of them didn't really, their time schedules didn't really work with my schedule. So speaking with what my routine was, so I usually like to work out in the mornings. I try to do like the morning workout, so like a 6 to 7 or 7 to 8. I took a full, I forgot what they how they do the credit hours now, but I think I had like 12. I think that's maybe 6 classes or 5 classes a semester. So I had the heaviest you could do. Then I was kind of, a little bit behind because I transferred there, so I had to pick up some credits. So I usually try to get a workout in the morning, have my first layers of classes. Practice is usually 3, so we probably watch film at like 2 something. Practice, there's probably grab a bite in there somewhere. After practice, there's probably film, and then some kind of study group, or study hall, or go to the library. So from 6 in the morning or 7 in the morning to probably about 10 or 9, I had something going on. And then towards the end of my time as a senior or junior, I joined an organization, 100 Black Men of Middle Tennessee, which was a mentor and tutorship organization for a lot of the local kids in that area. So I had time that I had to devote to that, in addition to school. And then, at that time, and this to show you how crazy life is in college is, I had a class that I made a D in, and I had an academic scholarship, and I had to keep my GPA over 3.0. And my GPA dropped from that class. And the reason why, at the end of the day, I should have been prepared, but the professor said it was open book. And then the day of, he was like, well, I forgot to tell the class it's open book. So the highest I can give y'all is a C if you use your book. So, I ain't gonna do that. So I failed that, made a D in the class, and that D dropped my GPA to 2.988. And it wouldn't round up. And it's like 100 of a point. So I protested and everything. I lost it. I lost like 12 grand in academic scholarship money that I had to use a loan to even stay in school. And in addition to that, I had to work weekends. So I was working in the off season, not during the season. In the off season, I was working at like plants. There was one in Mount Juliet. I worked 20 hours a week. On Saturdays and Sundays, I worked 10 hours. And that's just really to keep, money in my pocket, food to live off of. So, man, I ain't had really a whole lot of time to be just, messing around, playing video games, chasing folks. Like I was really, juggling a lot of stuff, man. It was a lot of stress on me at the time, just because I wanted to graduate. I said I wanted to play professionally. Like I had all these goals, and I was doing whatever it took for me to stay in the game. So man, being a student athlete, especially someone who has to work to pay their way through school and survive, man, it's a lot, man. But you gotta want it, and that's the one thing. Like if you want it, it can be done. Like you'll find a way. If you make excuses for yourself or have a victim mindset, you're gonna find ways not to do it. But I had to find a way.
I know. I truly applaud you and everybody who does it, because just being a student athlete alone by itself, just when you're able to focus on your sport and go to school, it's tough. The schedule is tough.
Right. Oh,
So
for sure.
I can only imagine, adding other responsibilities where you have to go to work, you have to take care of your grades, because no disrespect to my teammates and whatnot, but this is even in JUCO. Like dudes feel like, man, you get some priority of certain things just because you're on the football team. You don't have that luxury when
Right.
nothing is given to you. So
Right.
there is no well, I got next time. No, you got to take care of
Not
what
for
you
sure.
got to take care of and really mature real fast. And I applaud you, bro. And
Right.
it's a blessing, and you can tell that has propelled you in what you're doing now, man, in your career. So I don't take it for granted. And all those who do it, man, my hat is off to you guys, man.
Nah, for sure, for sure. No, I appreciate that. I mean, you gotta, like you said, you gotta want it, and just being a student athlete, man, just being able to juggle multiple things, kind of having that, mindset, like, all right, right now, like I gotta be present. Like this is football. I'm working out, I'm practicing, I'm game planning, school, and you kind of compartmentalize, whatever your focus is, and that's something that translates over, to the professional world that we can get into later.
Yeah. So, what was your overall experience in college? Because everybody's different. I wasn't a partier. I didn't really go out. And anyways, Murfreesboro was a little too slow for me, so it wasn't really too much to do. But what was your overall like experience that you felt like you truly enjoyed, or it was just some aspects? We're not even talking about football all the time. We're just talking about
Sure.
the whole experience. How was that for you?
I think overall it was a good experience. I'm glad I transferred to MT. I met I joined some student organizations that can really help me in my career. Like I helped Associate Builder Contractors was an organization that for people in my career field, it was like-minded people. Like I said, the 100 Black Men of Middleton of MTSU was the mentorship. So I really want to give back on my free time, non-fraternal. I didn't really, my football was the fraternity for me. I didn't really have time, for anything else. Um, you know, I attended some parties and stuff, when I had time, but towards the end of my time there, I just really just locked in, just like, hey man, I gotta this is it. So like, maybe as a freshman, sophomore, you might, you kind of dabble in that, but nothing where it's gonna take my focus away. I really didn't like like even when it comes to dating, like I was like, man, I'm trying to be locked in, man. Some people is different, that's they find their partners there, and it's cool to stay in contact with them, but like I really was trying to like make it somewhere, and getting that degree and getting to the next level was something that I wasn't gonna try to let anything take me from. And I didn't really want any distractions because I didn't want people to be like, oh man, I need you to come in for this. Like that was my time to really be selfish. And I tell people like, man, when you really want to get somewhere in life, you gotta be selfish, like in a good way where you put in your priorities, and you gotta like um you gotta put all into that. So, when I felt like someone was gonna rob me or take that away from me, I didn't want to be around that. So but overall, man, I thought college was, you know, I talk about this in my book, like, college is a business, and you got to get out as much as you can get out of that university as you possibly can, because they're gonna get that out of you. They marketing, you wearing the apparel, the MTSU, the UCLA, the USC, you wearing them hoodies, you promoting them. So somebody in high school or a kid is like, oh, I want to be like you. So how are you getting that out of your university? So um, I truly looked at MT like that, like a partnership. Yeah, I'm paying my way. Yeah, I might not have some of the perks that a scholarship athlete has, but I can work for everything that's given here. Like, at the end of the day, only people who know I'm now on scholarship is, the team, but everyone else, you on the team. So it ain't like there was a divide in that aspect. So, you know, um, so I think from a university standpoint, man, going to MT was an excellent university for me, and was able to graduate on time, and use those resources and people I meet to become lifelong friends for sure.
Man, I think, and it's not envious, but I'm glad that you saw that partnership, because I saw it. I didn't know how to articulate it when I was there.
For
Like
sure.
I understood it, but it was just like, and I say this all the time, and people, I think college football prior to these guys getting paid, it's slavery. It's modern day slavery.
For sure.
And I voiced my opinion to Coach Stock and other coaches and of course players about certain things. Not necessarily how we was treated, but um, for what they expected of us and what was given back to us. I didn't, and I understand it now as far as it is a business and you have to conduct business yourself as the player athlete, rather
Right.
On scholarship or not. So I
Right.
told.
Right. And to piggyback on that point, as a walk-on and through my 4 years, so there's always like at the beginning of the season, they're like, all right, you won't have your shot in spring. It was always like when spring come, you won't have your shot. Like my redshirt junior year, I make the bus. I start traveling with the team. Then I slowly get on special team, kickoff, punt block, field goal block. And then by my senior year, I was rotating on, some of the nickel packages, come rotating, on safety. When it started, they needed a breather, whatnot. So, but there was always, or at least my mindset, I was gonna get that football scholarship, and then they was bringing in new recruits, and it got to and right before my last fall, I had a meeting with coach. I had a meeting with my positions coach, and they said, "Hall, you've done everything we could tell you to do. You've done everything." And I'm like, okay, this is what they gonna tell me, but you got one semester left. It's in our favor to bring in to pay for a freshman, give him a scholarship, then give you a scholarship because you almost out the door and you already paid for everything. And it's in my mind, it's completely the opposite of what I've been told. And that was a hard night being like, man, I kind of feeling bamboozled. Like, man, I've been really busting my tail, just doing everything that the coach been telling me, the players been telling me, and then saying, hey, we're gonna bring in, an unproven freshman on an athletic scholarship, because the scholarship means so much because that's the money, that's the bread, and for you to be grinding as hard. So I was blessed to have some other academic stuff that I had, but other than that, man, I'm paying out of my pocket, and for the university. So you said my overall experience for the things I can control, I try to make the most of it. But from that experience, it really left a sour taste in my mouth that, and the day, if you're not good enough, you're not good enough. But like I travel, I made the bus, I travel with the team, contribute on, like started on special teams, and still having to pay my own way, is something that I didn't really understand. I think it was a lot with the position coach I had. I don't really get into all that. But um, at the end of the day, a decision could have been made and it wasn't made on my behalf. And it's something that I don't, I always remember. It's more like, man, you can do everything right, you can do everything the right way, and it still not be enough. And that's life. And that's something that, that's the chip on my shoulder I carry all the time. It's like I did everything I could do.
Oh, no.
And it was out of my control. So
Man, and that's why I think your story is so powerful, because you can tell your story and it definitely resonate with some kids because they don't know the options. Like a coach can be like, we're gonna keep doing it, we're gonna keep doing it. But if a kid can see the writing on the wall, be like, you know what, I'm just gonna bounce to where, or
sure.
I'm gonna make a decision much earlier then, because I can see that you keep moving the field goal post, as they say.
Right.
So I can make this decision earlier. Rather, we're in this unknown space. So
Right.
we're really figuring it out for the first time. But like you said, if you have kids, you have a daughter or a son, whatever, now you can be like, look, nah, this is what they doing. We need to move on.
Right.
So
Yeah. I didn't have that. I didn't have like when that field goal post kept moving forward. I mean, they kept moving it. I didn't like, my support group and myself was like, man, you got to double down, man. You got to really fight for it. You got to, it's something I'm doing. And it wasn't. I had probably my position group probably had one of the higher GPAs. And the other guys in the position group, GPAs lower, getting paid, and it's like a slap in the face. And don't get me wrong, everyone's different, but in my particular situation, it's a slap in the face when you're doing everything you're supposed to be doing. You ain't even a problem. Like when it comes to going to class and doing all the things that are not even, it's minuscule, you know, you're not getting rewarded. So that right there is one of the reasons that, I kind of have my, frustration with the program. So,
For sure. And the crazy thing about it, Hawk, we like the same. I've been, and I think it's more, I go back to that foundation. Like, do what you're told, it's gonna work out for you. And I realize the higher and higher we get up is a business. And that's not necessarily the case. And I wouldn't say I knocked the system. I was just quiet. I saw things, I just didn't say anything about it. But now that I'm older and I see it, I say something for myself, but I also speak on the behalf of other people because I don't want them to be the sheep in the slaughter where they take advantage of you. So, man, we can stay here, but I want to move on, man.
Sure.
I want to take up too much of your time. So, you said you was not contributing on the football field. You're actually playing, which I know this is an exciting time for you. Of course, you would love to get more time, but now the end of the game, the end of the season is here. This is your last game of the season. Did you know that your football career was over at that point, or did you want to continue to go for it?
I want to keep playing like anybody. I mean, my career ended this is the fall of 2012. I think you was out 2011. So the fall of 2012. So we actually turned the program around. I know we had
best, one of the best. Well,
right.
Before you go into it, so when I got there, then your freshman year, your redshirt year, they had the best record they ever had.
Right.
When I got there, my senior year, I don't know if it's the worst, but we only won 2 games. So it may be the worst that the school has also had.
Right. So I want to set the stage on that. So so we turned the pro. I'm talking about, man, we got them off season, man. We really, I felt like the off season we got better, man. We really gelled as a team, and it proved. We had an 8-4 record. Like I said, I contribute. I was on kickoff, punt block. I rotated on dime and nickel packages. So I'm actually getting real looks. And then in the Memphis game, third game of the season, actually was special teams player of the week, which was, a huge award, and Coach Ellis actually, really advocate for me to be on the special teams, really travel, man, because there's another walk-on prior to me, Sherman Neal, shout out to Sherman, that he really see me kind of in that same light, and so that really kind of helped me, find a way to contribute. So getting to the end of the season, we had some, huge upsets. We upset Georgia Tech, I think Troy, and we go to the end of the season and play Arkansas State for technically the Sun Belt Championship. I think we're both 7-3, and whoever won that game won the Sun Belt Championship pretty much. We didn't have a game, but you outright had the best record. So we got killed, man. Like Arkansas State slaughtered us like 40-something to 7 or whatever it was. So, but we were still 8-4, bowl eligible. So we wasn't sweating it. And bowl selection was that Sunday. So we're all, going into the the meeting room, and you started to hear little rumblings that, we might not be going to a bowl game. It's like, rumor or whatnot. And then we get there, I see Coach Stock's face. I'm like, oh. And it's before he said anything, but he didn't look happy. He looked like kind of stressed. And he kind of broke the news like, yo, we didn't get selected to a bowl game. And this is before I knew really what was going on. But at that time, we didn't get selected to a bowl game. And I graduated that Saturday. I walked the stage, and that was it. I go from the Saturday before, we were going to play a conference championship game. I talk about this in my book as well, but that's the Saturday before, the first Saturday in the month. We're playing for the conference championship. That Sunday we find out we're not We didn't get selected to a bowl game for whatever reason. At that time, I didn't know. We didn't know. And um, and then I graduated that Saturday. And honestly, that was really it, man. That's how my career kind of really went to an end. I trained for the pro day. The pro day was that March or April. My dad was my agent. I went to the videographer and all the clips, practice. The small special team contribution. I had a DVD, made, and I sent it to NFL teams. I knew my draft stock probably wasn't the highest, but it was a dream of mine. I want to at least have the interview, and in my opinion, the pro day was the interview. And so trained for that. I didn't have the best workout. It was like 35 degrees out there, man. I think now they go into the Titans indoor facility, but it was 35 degrees out there doing them drills, man. And didn't have the best workout, but I was at least able to try out. From there, I did there was a couple Canadian League tryouts I did in Atlanta, Birmingham, Cincinnati, and there was like 500 kids, man. We all were paying like $100 for these tryouts. And when I seen that was the first time I seen, dude, there was 250 safeties from all over Mississippi State, Cincinnati, Troy, MTSU, University of Memphis. And it's like they walking out there with three positions, man. And I done went to like 5 tryouts. And I was starting to, in my mind, like I've done everything, but get paid for it. That was where I was at. And I kind of told myself, man, after the draft or after the end of summer, so this is the summer of 13, if I didn't get any calls or any looks, man, I was just going to really just use my career and really move on from it. So I did get a call from an arena team, but they didn't really. It wasn't like the AFL. It's like maybe the IFL or something like that. And I didn't really have an interest in it. And I really wanted to kind of just move on with this chapter and just set the stage for what's to come. But circling back, understanding why we missed the bowl game, which is I think critical, and it goes back to the business aspect. Is I don't think anyone's publicly came out and said it, but like we went to Conference USA, and one of the reasons, one of the things we had to do, or MTS had to do, I think they had to pay either a $10 million exit fee to leave the conference and play the bowl game to represent the Sun Belt, or forfeit their bowl rights and pay $1 million exit fee. And that decision was the reason why I didn't play a bowl game my senior year. And it's another reason why you said my overall college experience, how was that? That's going to leave a bitter taste in anybody's mouth, that someone made a decision that had nothing to do with the season, turning the season from a 2-10 program to an 8-4 program. And all that hard work, someone similar to, the Florida State situation with the college football, someone who has nothing to do with these, and don't get me wrong, I'm just talking about just the stats and the record.
Mm-hmm.
He turned a program around and was robbed of a bowl game. At least Florida State, they're going to a bowl game. They're playing the Orange Bowl. That was it for me. That was my last football game. So, man, that was a lot, man. Like as a young man, bro, it was a lot to deal with, man. That year, there's a lot of turmoil. So, man, I'm blessed.
And it's crazy because the people at the top who's pulling the strings, they don't understand what that does to the players.
No, for sure.
That's why, and you said it's like being selfish, and it's not, because you just have to do what's best for you, because they're going to do what's best for their business. And I say all the time, we are independent contractors as football players, as athletes, and we have to do what's best for our own business. And it's crazy you said that, because I think that year, after you guys had that good year, I went back up there to Middle Tennessee, and I saw Coach Doc. And he said, man, I'm sorry that you guys didn't benefit from what we in now, because the field done changed, all these things are happening. He's like, I'm sorry, man, you guys didn't benefit from this. And I was never upset with Coach Doc ever. Because Coach Doc is real cool, and they just released him. It's unfortunate he been there for like 18 years. Uh,
Right.
I love the dude. Can reach out to him. He's always been someone you can communicate, and so I definitely love him for that. But I did feel a certain way at MTSU, just like you, my senior year, but I'm not going to get into those. So, but it's unfortunate that that impact that has, and all we want to do is educate you young men that this is a business and understand these things are possible. And like Hogg just said, man, Florida State was a great example of what that was.
Oh,
So
for sure.
man, you graduated and you major in construction of management and technology. Yet
Right.
you mentioned it before that you published a book. So
Right.
tell us what inspired you to become an author, and then what is your book about?
So kind of at that stage there, I'm freshly out of undergrad, not really a professional career. Um, and just really try to make it. The one thing that we didn't talk about is all the missed opportunities of going to networking events, internships, um, all the exposure my peers and counterparts that were in my major was getting while I was in school
Yeah.
and busting my tail to be on the football field.
Hmm.
See, they were taking advantage of those opportunities and I wasn't. So I didn't have any real world work experience, and construction was one of those scenarios where it's more experience driven than it actually is education driven, at least initially. And then, so I went through a year and a half of rejections on trying to get a job, just lack of experience. Even though I have a degree, I
Hmm.
you know I got what everybody wanted, but it wasn't enough.
Nope.
And so a year and a half of that, and just really just being over it, man. Just being just so pissed off, frustrated that my peers is like here, like some people that went to the league that I know, some people is in their career field that I know, some people, and it's like all that just being built up on top of you. And I just wanted a fresh start, man. I was like, man, I like so I had an opportunity to go to Florida. Florida was one of the top three markets, South Florida at that,
Mhm.
and and while I was there and a little bit before I really started working in my field, I had a lot of people asking me like, "Hey man, hey Hall, like you know, how'd you get your job, or how they're just asking questions like other athletes, people up going up through the ranks." And I was like, man, what if there's a way that I can take all the knowledge I have, give it to somebody instead of me having all these 2 hour long phone calls every night, and be able to give it to benefit the next generation. And then, there could be a way that I can monetize that as well. So I never wanted to be an author, but I was like, man, I think all this history I have, there's got to be a way I can give this information back. So I published it. So I drafted a book with the help of an editor I know at a newspaper. So it's called The Untold Story, Preparation of Life After a Sports Career. I feel our stories as we're talking today is like there's so many, like my stories are probably 1 in 1 million. And every year there's a different story. And how is that preparing you for life? Because sports is only just a short period of time. It's like a gauntlet. Like you're so oblivious to really what's going on in the world. I can't even tell you what was going on politically. I know Obama got elected around the time out, but other than that, I can't tell you really what was going on. Like I'm tunnel vision. We were locked in.
Uh,
So um, so man, I just wanted to give back. I wanted the same information we're really talking about today. That if I was a senior right now, what would be the steps I'll be doing? Because I didn't have that person in my life. None of my dad went to college, but none of them were athletically to that level. So if you don't really have anyone at that level, it's kind of hard to get that mentorship that's in anything.
yeah.
And then they got different outlets, social media, what's called Huddle,
Yeah. Hulu.
who who
Hulu.
it's like
Are you talking
a
about Huddle?
yeah, Huddle,
Yeah.
where you can put your tape on, you can
Yeah.
kind of promote yourself. And we didn't have that. Like, and that's a platform I know a lot of coaches and recruiters and scouts use to get access to game film and practice film. So I wanted to at least be like, hey, how can I how can I empty my glass to the next generation? Because I feel like it was so crucial, and there were some missteps that I made that I wish somebody would have told me. That's why I wrote the book.
Yeah, nah, that's powerful, man, and that's the same reason why I do what I do as well, because of that. And I'm there is a fear to even do that, though, because a lot of people don't want other people to know their story sometimes. Like,
Right. No,
you feel like embarrassed about whether it's a failure or not. Like, but there is strength because there's people fighting the same battles that we are fighting, and we just don't know. And for you to do that, man, that takes a lot. And I'm proud of you, bro. And I told you that before. I'm extremely proud of you, man, because that's a vulnerable space to
right.
do, and especially from a athlete. They tell us just focus on being an athlete, being that stay in your lane, but we're more than that. So I'm just glad for you to do that. And Scrap, he's done the same thing, and I'm happy for you guys, man.
No, for sure. No, most
So
definitely.
so now we out of school, and you've mentioned about the opportunities that you don't have an opportunity to do, as far as the networking, as far as getting the internships and stuff like that, which I tell people all the time. I said, man, I said school is a gimmick anyways. I said if I didn't get a scholarship, I would do things totally different. Just now, just knowing what I know. But how did playing football, what you endure, how does that help you transition into your career now? And then what are you currently working on right now at this moment?
Right. So, sports is a vehicle. It's something that you can take it as far as you
Yeah.
want to. That's one thing that, I definitely believe in. So sports was able to help me transition and to my career field. So I'm in construction management, project manager for GC, and also I have my own outfit as well as a licensed general contractor in Florida. So the discipline as being an athlete is the same discipline in the corporate or entrepreneurship. Let's speak on from that aspect. So at the end of the day, you got to be self motivated. You got to if you're working out on your own, game preparation, it's the same thing as getting ready for a business pitch, or you're working with a partner. There's similarities, and I talk about this a lot in my book about how we as athletes we feel inferior that I don't have them skills yet, but you do. And this is what I was telling you earlier in the podcast, how I was juggling school, football, working. Man, how many 19, 20-year-olds are doing these things? Not a lot.
Exactly.
And so when I was selling myself in interviews, I was telling the interviewee that, like, yo, like I was able to do these things and be successful at it. Yeah, I wasn't, doing this particular thing at the project, but I know what a high stress or, environment is like. And this is how I was successful. And so once you make that mental, you know, adjustment, like, hey, I've already done this. Yeah, it might not be the same, jargon or whatever I'm currently doing, but I've done this before. So when that actually clicked, that I'm even more prepared, because I'm only focusing on one thing. I ain't focusing on two or three or four things, focusing on one thing. And when I made that mental mindset, I'm like, dang, like, I got all this free time now. I can really lock in on this. So uh, I think student athletes have an exceptional leg up on their peers just because they've done that for so long. And then, they do transition from their career field, they're able to transition quicker. Like I hear a lot of corporations and companies, they like hiring student athletes because they have that background. It's similar to like a military background. They're used to working alone. They can be trusted. Like, especially playing defensive back. Like, we're the last line of defense. We're gonna be even more precise on our keys and our assignments so we don't give up a touchdown. It's the same thing I can sell it. Hey, just like, this is in a pressure situation where it's 1,000 people in the stadium. Like, when I'm dealing with a scenario where I'm budgeting a project budget, and I don't want to overspend, that's a pressure situation. So being able to kind of sell yourself and say, hey, I'm gonna have the exact experience, but like my background is either similar or suitable. It might not be, specialized in whatever that focus is, but it's at least a similar energy. So I hope I answered that question. I
No,
just want
you definitely did, and I believe the biggest thing, like you said, is selling yourself, and because it's not in that niche or that specific area, those tangible details that we do have, they can relate to anything in life, like everything that we go through in sports, teamwork, working by ourselves, time management. Like you said, we had to do these things. Now, did we actually word it to ourselves? No, we didn't. But we
yeah.
have all those traits already given to us at a young age. So we are very, very much qualified. It's just now we're just selling ourselves to those people to believe that we can do what we can. And of course, as student athletes, there's nothing really too much we can't do. We all love to accept challenges. So
For sure.
yeah.
For sure. I mean, then they got NIL and they got some other opportunities that, man, it's a blessing, man. I hope everyone that has those opportunities maximize it, and not necessarily just have it and take it for granted, really build partnerships with these corporations and companies. And even when their playing days is over, have them same relationships that they can come back to for other opportunities. And that's the thing is like, like I said, when you're in college, it's a partnership, and everybody you come across, you got to understand how to maximize that for your benefit and not just be a face in the crowd or someone wearing a jacket, because you're promoting the school, but you can't miss that critical piece of of benefiting for yourself. Like I said, like I hate saying that you gotta be selfish, but like it's a short time of your life where you have access to a lot of things that can change you and your family's life for a long time. And if you don't take advantage of it, you can look back 5, 10, 15 years down the line, like, hey, I might not be where I'm currently at, but I had those tools, and that's okay. There's ways to still recover from that, but it's a critical time in young people's life to really maximize that to your advantage.
We got to build your own brand separate from whatever entity we're at. Definitely.
For sure. No,
So,
for sure.
so man, share the difference of the sports world, the corporate or real world. What is the difference? Because as a student athlete, and I just had this conversation with someone I know, we get stuck in that transition once it's over. So share
Right.
the difference.
So I like to call that space identity jail. So, you know, uh, we all struggle with like, who are we? Like, am I Robert Hogg, the football player, or I'm Robert Hogg that plays football? There's a difference. I chose to play football. I'm a person before I'm a football player. A lot of people don't, they don't make that transition. When they do, I won't say it's too late, but like they struggle with that. They struggle, and that can lead to more mental, scenarios, depression, and you get that thing that's taken away from you. So I didn't struggle with that as much as I always viewed myself as someone who played football. I made a choice to do it. That wasn't who I was. I think people and we're way bigger than what we choose to do. Like you could be a teacher, you could be any job title, but that ain't who you are. You just do that to support yourself. You could be a plethora of different things. Um, so me knowing that and me juggling multiple things when I transitioned to the corporate and real world, especially entrepreneurship, those are just my vehicles. But at the end of the day, I think we're all vessels for a bigger purpose. I think we're all working congruently to really fulfill God's will. So to get back to the foundation we talked about. So our different vehicles we use to maximize our strengths, however you do that, however your strengths are, is the same thing. So but ultimately in the corporate world, real world, it's like I said, similar to it's all about the numbers. Like, are you a liability or are you an asset to a company? If you're a liability, it might not be the next day, it might not get cut, but they're gonna find different. What they ain't gonna tell you, they'll do things maybe behind you, ask feedback from a manager or a peer, and get you out of there. I mean, ultimately, you have A players, B players, and C players. And I don't want to get into D&L because that don't really even, that ain't even the real world. You got A, B, and C, and C they try to replace you. They want to get the B's to the A's, and A's they want you to be they try to pay you good so you don't leave.
Exactly.
And that's the same in the corporate world. So same in sports. The C's like, all right, man, we got to cut this guy, get him up out of here. The B's, how can we get these guys better? And the A's, they get the top money. They're the top dogs. So it's the same thing. And business is real simple. It's all about, are you an asset or you're a liability? And, and if you are an asset, how are you bringing value? And then one thing I did learn is how can you monetize your value? How can you say, hey, I saved the company, or if it's your, um, um, I was able to, just be able to show your value, but like in a economic, standpoint. Like, hey, I was able to save the company, $1,000 by doing this tactic. Instead of like, hey, I say, I did this and that, but no, I really, by me doing these things, I was able to save the company money, or I was able to grow the company money. I was able to get these more context to it. So those are the different things that you might not really understand, but how do you monetize your value? I think is something that the quicker you understand that as, a professional, the more you can sell yourself, like, to a company or a partnership or whatever your interest is.
Yeah. Now, I think that's key and that's big. Especially, I mean, this is how kids, regardless if you're getting paid NIL or whatnot, this is something they have to figure out now because of these opportunities that's given into them. So that's why I think the NIL is a great thing, because now kids, we have to learn about money management.
Right.
This, you never really were making money because of
Right.
always being in sports, unless you had a job. But now we also get to learn negotiating. These are the things that teach us, and they think like, oh, it's a hindrance. This is a blessing actually to you guys. You guys are learning the corporate world in the sports realm, which has always been, we just didn't see it as the player. So this opportunity, once we're done, to continue to do business and and propel ourselves rather than starting from the scratch all over again. So I appreciate.
I just hope the universities are putting the tools and resources to help these kids with the NIL. I know we always talk about, the top 10 NIL athletes and all the perks that come with that. But like, do they have financial planners? Do they have people talk about taxes? Do they have people talk about, are these people creating companies? I mean, I don't hear nearly as much as that. And I assume it's happening, or I would hope it is, but you never know. Like, you a kid, you getting $1 million advance, somebody giving you a truck, you getting all these perks. How you protecting these things? You got people at the schools, are they looking at you different? How are you protecting the asset? So, I just hope universities are having financial advisors and planners and professionals that have the interest of the student, not just themselves, to protect these young people, that they can benefit from these things. Because, years later, you blow $1 million, and you had $1 million, it's different from never having $1 million.
Exactly.
So,
and to that point, I believe they will and they won't, because once again, now in a financial position, as a run my own practice, I see a lot of people that are like, why they don't teach us in school? If they taught us in school, they couldn't take advantage of you.
Right.
So why would they educate you if? So hopefully they would want to do it, but I see it like it would have to benefit the school, and right now it doesn't benefit the school. Now, if they do it, I hope it will, but at the same time, now this is where trust has to come in, and who's really for you and not really stealing from you. And I think this is, over time, we're going to see some really bad stories, which we already heard, and we're going to hear some good stories on how people have changed their legacy going forward for their families.
For sure.
So, man, you've now moved out of Tennessee. Like you said, you mentioned you're in Florida. You're now a husband, a father. How has
Right.
that transition been for you? Because I know I love to speak to men about now being a husband, being a father. Me, myself, I'm a husband. I'm a father. It is totally different than anything else I've been through in my life. So share
Right.
that transition for you and how it's been.
Yeah. So I have a 10-month-old. And me and my wife will be a year and a half, been married. I've known her about be actually 10 years next year. So about 9 years we've been together. And man, it's crazy, man. Being responsible for someone and having a family and your needs are kind of put on the back burner, but not forgotten. But it also gives you a new drive, and it also fuels the why that we always talk about. So it's been a beautiful thing. Having a baby girl, someone that is a lifelong friend and I can groom, and me and her mom kind of, grooming her to contributing beautiful woman when she gets older. So I've been taking it, day by day, but my thing is when I'm home, I'm dad, I'm 100% present. I don't want to miss anything. And then when I'm out making, I'm focused, I'm doing that. So, man, I love it, man. I've always wanted a family. Like, I came from an excellent family. Shout out to my parents and, my sister. And having that great experience as a family is one thing I've always wanted for myself. I know society gives us all the different type of distractions about, partnership and marriage, but when you truly find someone for you and you truly create a beautiful thing, man, we're supposed to have these things, we're supposed to have companionship. We're supposed to have these things, and I know everyone doesn't look at it the same, and I respect everyone's feedback on that. But it gives, there's nothing better than coming home and celebrating with your family. People who really truly know what you put into it, and see your hard work and celebrate. There's like someone celebrating you. So having that foundation and support of people who truly want you to do well, man, it's a beautiful thing.
Wow, that's awesome, man, and blessings to your family. Do
I
y'all want
appreciate
any
it.
more, man? Y'all want any more?
What was that?
Y'all want any more kids?
I'd say eventually, not right now. We gotta take it one at a time. But I mean, two's always been kind of. I mean, I have a sister, so I grew up with a sibling. But I say so. I mean, I never really was like, we only want one, but we'll see, man. We'll take it, year by year.
So this is a more personal question. You don't have to ask because we talked about fatherhood, and there's a lot of men who do not want to commit to a woman, nor do they want to have kids, and they're doing that more so because financially they feel like they're unstable. Did you feel like that was the case for you ever at any point of getting married or having a child?
That's a good question. I mean, prior to, there's always those thoughts like, hey man, I'm not ready. And to be honest with you, you're never gonna be ready. You're never gonna be 100% ready to commit to a partner. You're never gonna be 100% ready to have a child. Like there's no perfect timing for it. And life, as we just went over on this podcast, it throws you different type of scenarios, and none is gonna be 100% perfect. So, with that being said, if you at least have somewhat of essentials, you know, uh, you have a steady place where you live in, and I think you can figure it out. Obviously, life's little, cost of living is crazy, and you don't want to bring unnecessary, responsibilities. But at the same time, I don't think you can live life saying, hey, I need to have X dollars in account to settle. Now, if that's a true goal you have, hey, to each his own, go for that. But, you know, that comes with something else though. That also come with, is this person really for me? And I've always been a person that I want to build with somebody. Not, I've got to that point, and then I kind of see what's out there. I mean, I think that's a different way of thinking compared to you built the life together. So I think everyone's different, but for me, I was at least in a career field where I can at least support myself and a family. I did have, I own where I live. So I had somewhat of a foundation where if I did take them next steps, it wasn't going to bring me down. Now, managing of additional expenses is a different conversation.
Yeah, yeah. And this is something I talk to my kids I train, because I want to be able to a mentorship as a whole, on and off. And being a father is one of those things. And as men, we need to understand the responsibility. But I remember prior to me getting married, I looked at statistics, and people were waiting a little longer because they wanted to be financially stable, as men at least. And it's a crazy stat that younger men that got married at a younger age and they grew with their partner, they're actually able to grow financially faster than a person who would be single. And for some odd reason, to each his own. But when you have two people and their income or whatever it is that you're waiting for, you have now someone depending on you, and you can really
Right.
like, okay, like you said, you have a reason. You have the reason why you have someone who's a teammate, and it says in the Bible, if one falls, the other one can pick you up. And
Right.
sometimes when you're alone doing things, yes, you can go fast, but how far will you go?
Right.
So I would just want to share and give people, young men, these understanding of that dynamic of being a father, and you don't always have to wait. Now, I'm not telling you don't, if you ain't got no job or anything, don't start no family. You
Nah,
should
for sure,
date.
for sure,
You shouldn't
for
be dating,
sure.
nor have a
Yeah.
kid. So
Yeah, nah, I ain't saying that either, man. But you ain't gotta wait till you 40. You ain't gotta wait because you know, I always wanted to be able to play with my kids when they get older. Like when I like my dad, he was kind of he moved around trying to make, excel in his career. So he didn't have me till he was, what was that, 36, 37, his later 30s. So when I'm in high school, he's more in his 50s. He ain't out there throwing the ball. He ain't out there hooping. He's out there, but it ain't like, he can really get around. And I remember that feeling, and I was like, hey, if I'm in a position, and I didn't like, it's all, it's easier to say, but if I'm in that position, I would love to have, I would love to, to play with him more.
nah, for sure, man. And this is my last question, man, so I can get you out of here. What advice or insight would you give to the next generation of athletes, or not even just athletes, entrepreneurs? What's something you would leave for them?
Um, I think it'll go back to the partnership for the athletes. I think that's something that, and also entrepreneurship, especially uh, networking is one thing I did do a lot in college. I network with a lot of people on the team, and I think using the team in like this podcast today. You and me reaching out, we have similarities. Um, utilizing the university or high school or any, like, they're just resources, and a lot of people, they want to be a part of something good. Obviously they, you got to do some of the sweat equity or the groundwork, but they want to be a part of that in the entrepreneurship space. And I learned this by myself. You can't do everything by yourself. I think a lot of that's ego. I read a book called Ego is the Enemy, and there's a lot of things we want to say, me, I did this. Society kind of ingrains that in us, like, hey, I'm self-made, I did all this. Man, you can have more success in a team atmosphere when everyone is on the same goal. And that's why sports is such a beautiful thing, because there's a common goal. There's there's on football, there's 11 people or 53 in the NFL, and 100 and I think 10 in college, that has a collective goal at the end of the season. And it's the same in business. The goal, I mean, whatever your goal is, if it's a financial goal, is it, a business growth goal, it's a collective goal at the end of that term. So the more you can be on the same page and develop, beautiful partnerships where you can work for a common goal, the better. So that's what kind of helped me excel in sports, and is what is helping me, in you know, the entrepreneurship business space. And I don't know it all yet. You know, don't be afraid to reach out for help, especially, you know, people, you know, especially Black men. You know, we always want to be, we always want to be right. We don't want to be wrong. There's not a lot of, or we don't maybe seek that help. But also, you know, there might not be help for you to reciprocate. So it's kind of being comfortable being uncomfortable. And that's the main thing that I kind of want to end today is you got to, in order to truly grow, you got to be uncomfortable being, you got to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And my whole journey in life that I talked about, from moving from Memphis to East Tennessee as a cultural shock and dealing with, you know, those particular people, and then moving to Florida, which is a major market, has a lot of international cultures, be able to move in that type of environment only makes you a better person. And when you kind of, you know, be stagnant and only, hey, I only want to live in my town forever and do this. No, that's cool. But, you know, you're putting a cap on your greatness, and, you know, you can't let anybody, you got to set whatever you want to be as your true goal. Cause that's how happiness and success is a goal that you plan and you achieve it. That's success. You know, success ain't $20 million in the bank. It's not, you know, whatever monetary achievement that is pushed on us. It's something that you set out there to do and you do it. So if that's you to get a D1 scholarship, whatever them steps is to take, getting yourself exposure, take them steps. If it's you, you know, getting a job in this field, is going to career fairs and is going to talking to your professors, and it's networking, is getting in that space, and then it's entrepreneurship, is not being afraid to fail. And that's one thing I've learned, you know, in entrepreneurship, is a lot of it is just putting yourself out there. You might have to fail to get true feedback on your product or service, and then tweak it to make it better and put it back out there again. Because it and like I was saying about marriage, or the young men we were saying, you're never gonna have it all together. And once you thinking, you know, once I have it all together, then I'm gonna start. It don't work like that. And that goes back to our foundation of being rewarded by using your faith. So, so that's pretty much what I can leave you to, man. You got to have faith, man. You got to believe in yourself, man. But ultimately, you got to be comfortable being uncomfortable.
Man, Hogg, I appreciate you, man, for your time. Appreciate you sharing your story. And where can people find your book and purchase your book at?
I'm glad you asked. So, so my website is lifeaftersports.com. You can purchase it there. It's also on Amazon. Just type in the title. I can put it in the chat or send it to you directly. I also have a copy here that I'm a sign and send it to you. You know, you can also give it to, you know, your team, or, you know, if anyone have any question, they could definitely reach out to me on that. I got some Q&A from some, you know, professional athletes and coaches that I don't want to give away, but they give great insight and reinforce, you know, you and I's points as well. So also, you can follow me on the social media platform, Robert Hogg Jr, on Instagram and on Facebook, and my LinkedIn. So, but now just here to help. You know, there's a lot of knowledge in my brain on, you know, how to get to that next level, and if not, you know, how to transition. And, you know, if I can leave one thing, is, you know, life is bigger than sports. And I know it's pushed down our throat. You know, LeBron James, Michael Jordan, some of the GOATs, and they're incredible, but you can go professional in any other career out there and be just as successful. And it's okay. And I think that's the one thing, like, it's okay to be an expert at, you know, a particular trade. It's okay. There's a lot of success in the aspects, and only 1% goes professional, at least in our particular sport, you know, in football. So, you know, not making it, you know, I hate to say it's okay, but like, we're so much bigger than that. We're always transforming, metamorphing to something different.
For sure, man, for sure. And definitely gonna put it down on the link, man. But bro, appreciate you, man. We're gonna connect again real soon. Happy holidays to you and your family, though, my guy.
All right, for sure. Appreciate it, man. Appreciate you having me.
No problem, man.
All right. Thank you.